All right, so I just finished placing a 6,000 pound feed order for several different farming operations, anything from pigs to chickens to goats to sheep to cows, and that feed order was placed just in time because I placed the order and paid $1,562 for it, and the very next day, that same order would have cost me $1,642.50. Now that may not sound like a lot, but that is 5% overnight, and some of the items on this list went up 12% overnight. In fact, this same cube, it's gone up 23% in 6 months. So we're not just talking this 5% overnight, we're talking 23% in 6 months. In this video, I'm just gonna walk you through an itemized list of what went up. Second thing I'm gonna do is talk about the animals it's impacting the very most. Number 3, and probably the most important, is how I'm gonna work to further reduce my inputs here on farm through pasture improvement. And I'm gonna put a plug right here and right now for this book that I have been absolutely soaking up all winter long. It's Quality Pasture by Allen Nation, available at shopshepherdess.com. Prices have not gone up overnight over there. But to start off with, this particular order was for a co-op of sorts. We order in 2 tons from this particular feed mill, which is local here in Texas. And by buying 2 tons worth of feed, we get a little bit of a discount. But here's a breakdown. Chicken feed went up 5%. My 38% cattle cubes also went up 5%. But here is the big deal. On this order list were cracked corn as well as crushed barley. The cracked corn went up 12% overnight, and the barley went up 10% overnight. I talked to the feed mill lady and she said this is typically the time of year when the feed actually goes down. She said, but we are bracing for a huge increase. This was an hour and a half before the feed increase, and she said, call me in the next hour and a half with your order, or you literally don't know what you're looking at tomorrow. So I was able to slip this order in under the old prices before that 5 and 12% increase, but I covered a video on the fertilizer shortages, which are going to send grain prices through the roof. But when I made that video, we did not see the problems that we're seeing now. We all know what those are: the unrest, to put it mildly, overseas, and the skyrocketing fuel costs. Now, I was listening to a podcast between Joel Salatin and a financial analyst, and I will link that down below. But Joel Salatin said, in conventional farming, 50% of the costs are tied up in fuel. And he said, on my farm, at Polyface Farms, fuel costs account for about 5% of our costs on farm. So that just goes to show you that I don't think we've seen the end of these price increases. We've got sanctions from various countries which are reserving their grain supplies. And while this may sound extreme, we're watching gas prices go up daily. And with respect to the grain prices, this is just a bit of speculation on my part, but I don't think that a monthly price increase like what I just saw when I placed this order is out of the question. But the animal this impacted the most will be chickens. Chickens, almost 100% feed inputs. If you are rotating them around farm, you can get about 25% of the annual feed inputs off of pasture for that chicken. But still, you've got to be looking at supplementing that chicken 75%. And the same with pork. While they can forage off of pasture, you have to provide almost all of their feed inputs. Now, the neat thing is that sheep are not going to be impacted hardly at all. My flock, I only fed 5 pounds of supplement per head over winter. Aside from that, they grazed stockpile. They needed very little. And that 5 pounds, I can eliminate even further with proper management and some pasture improvements that I'm making, Lord willing, over this next year. The cattle, again, is very small. With well-managed pasture, I was able to go over winter without any hay for my cattle, and just cubed them at a rate of about 110 pounds per head over winter. Now, some of the things I am going to be doing in the coming year to further reduce my feed inputs are going to be improving my pasture. For the cattle, I was feeding supplement from about November up through, it's the first week of March right now, so I'm beginning to taper off. If I can shorten that window by planting a portion of winter pasture, that is something I'm really going to get serious about. And my sheep flock is sailing through, and more than likely next year I will be able to take them and carry them on only pasture. So raising sheep, if you are raising them on pasture, is really not going to be impacted. Now, as I say all of this, I understand that I'm working in Texas, Upper East Texas, where I'm not covered in 6 inches, 12 inches, 24 inches for some of my Canadian friends. every winter. And so if you guys would leave in the comments below, how are you dealing with the rise in feed costs and what is your strategy? I began 2 years ago really praying for the eyes to see an undervalued asset. I worked at a desk all day and I had a small amount of capital that I wanted to invest in something, and I prayed for eyes to see an undervalued asset. That's typically what investors go for. And I thought that maybe I would be given insights on a precious metal stock, or that I would see some sort of up and coming stock market investment opportunity. But within just a matter of months, the Lord started to really push me in the direction of agriculture. And not only agriculture, but quite specifically grass-based agriculture. And I did not initially understand that this interest in cows and sheep was an answer to that prayer. But the more I'm getting into it, the more I am seeing that this is an avenue. And in the 2 years since I began investing in pasture-based agriculture, the mainstream investment community is pushing agricultural commodities and stocks as investment opportunities in 2022. But agriculture is really the future, in my opinion, and it has to be done right. We are looking at a time when these inputs are becoming too expensive, but we need to maximize the opportunity that we have where we have it to run our farms pasture-based, grass-based, and reducing the inputs where we can. I have 2 videos upcoming, and number 1 is going to be each species in detail, what percentage of feed they can gather off of pasture, and what percentage of feed you need to look at buying in for them, and the costs associated with each animal. So once those videos are available, I will be linking them right here. Until then, guys, please comment below, how are you being impacted by the rise in feed costs?